You're listening to the Favorite Marriage Podcast, a place where you and your spouse can experience God's favor on your forever. Join us as we explore relevant topics and provide practical tools for your marriage toolbox. Here's this week's episode of The Favorite Marriage.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Favorite Marriage Podcast. We are your hosts, Monty and Jeannine Mora. And today we chose a topic today that was a little more relaxed, and we are going to talk about the healthy habits of dating.
Healthy habits of dating.
Yeah, something different.
Yeah. Hey, before we dive into the content, let's go ahead and give some shout outs.
Let's do it.
All right. So first of all, we like to give a shout out to Trista. Trista says, I downloaded Spotify just to follow your podcast.
Oh, I love you, Trist.
Thanks, Trista. Appreciate you. And then Michael, he says about the podcast, we can't wait. Me and Heaven will be watching.
So excited for you guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael and Heaven.
We love you too.
And for all of you all who have supported us during this new journey, we thank you for tuning in, listening to the Favorite Marriage Podcast. Well, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, now that kids are back to school, they've been home for summer, and sometimes during the summer months, the marriage tends to take the back seat.
Yep, for sure.
The dating life tends to take the back seat. And so we want to help you begin to get back into some form of rhythm once again as a married couple, especially in the dating arena. And so we want to be able to put some tools in your marriage toolbox, especially when it comes to date nights and being creative and being just fun and exciting and relaxing with one another. I remember one of my favorite date nights that we did together a couple years ago. We went on a date, and every spot that we went to, we took selfies. And then I think we ended the date at Baskin Robbins ice cream or something, and we took a selfie there. And then after that, we went to a local kiosk of a store, and we printed out all the selfie pictures, and we made a collage. And I think that picture stayed on our refrigerator for quite some time.
Yeah, it did.
And I was just thinking about that. I was like, I really enjoyed
sweet.
That date night.
Yeah. And you know what I loved most about that date night?
What?
You came up with everything.
I
it
did.
was like all planned by you. You were very creative. So, yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Guys, there you go.
Don't steal that one. That's off the table. But we have some years under our belt, so we've had quite a few ideas and thoughts that maybe we want to just throw out there and share with you guys. But first question is why should we date? And I also want just to speak to couples out there that are already like thinking in their minds, well, we're well into our 30, 40 years, 50 years of marriage. We really don't need to listen to this podcast. Like, we got this down. Or you might be out there thinking, it has been a long time since we dated. You might want to get your husband or your wife listening right now because dating is for everyone. Dating is for every season of marriage, from the newlyweds to the golden years. Yes. So please, we don't have all the creative ideas, so we're going to be asking you for some ideas as well as we end our podcast. So that's just a good way to get started.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and talk about some of these types of dates.
Yeah. Well, first of all, before we get into the types of dates, I want to share, I think, something very important to all of our listeners. And I'm going to put my sociology hat on, if you would give me that permission for a little bit real quick. Wheatley Institute, they did a study in 2022, and they surveyed 2,000 married couples. You know what they discovered?
What they discovered?
Over 52%, guys, of married couples do not date.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot. And they said that the other 48% that do date, they have sensed a love, a greater commitment, and get this, these couples tend to be more happier in their marriage.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're stepping away from the mundane busyness of your life, and you're breaking away and taking that time for the person you fell in love with.
The report goes on to say, besides the couple having a happier marriage, dating does provide like a stable marriage. The study also found that dating can rekindle the romantic spark for sexual intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And also, dating can boost commitment within the marriage. So there's a greater level of commitment just by a couple going out on dates. And I found that so interesting with this study. And so this is the reason why we want to talk about dating, especially in the context of marriage.
Yeah, well, it makes sense that it does those things because when you take the time out to, you carve, especially those of you who are very busy, when you carve that time out for your spouse, it definitely shows them that you are important.
Yeah.
You are important to me then when we first started dating and what brought us to this place now, and it saying you are still important
To me right now.
Yes.
Today, in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're excited. And speaking of excitement, we would say couples need to be creative with their dating habits, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
They got to kind of mix it up a little bit, and maybe going on a coffee date, ice cream, playing a board game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get relegated or stuck in some type of box that has to be our date.
Yeah.
Be creative, and you have the freedom as a couple to talk about some really cool dating ideas of what you like to do as a couple. We just want you to date. We just want them to date together.
Right.
As
and
a couple.
You might ask yourself right now, like, why are they taking the time just to talk about this in one podcast? Because we feel like it's very important. And the importance of that is to, like we said, is to build that connectivity. But another thing that is important, which leads me into this first part of the types of dating is the fun dates, is our kids, even as young as infants and toddlers, if they see mom and dad getting ready and taking time for each other and seeing just the awe and the wow of all of that, it builds in them, and it builds an expectation in their hearts for when they start dating. It shows them as they get older and they grow into their, elementary, middle school, high school years. It shows them that mom and dad love each other, and it builds a security in the home.
Yes.
And you might not think that, but it really does. Matter of fact, even as an adult, the other day I heard that my dad took my mom out on a date, and it just made me feel good. Yeah. And I thought, he really made my mom feel good, and it made me feel good. So good job, Dad. So, I mean, even as an adult, knowing and seeing my parents date, it builds security in your children.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
It really does. It really does.
Yeah. So fun dates.
Fun dates.
Number one, what are some things we've done that have been fun?
Let's see. Last weekend, we went to a concert together.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. And that was fun. Just the drive up to Denver, parking, walking into the arena, just getting prepared for the artist. And then I thought it was kind of fun because in some of the songs that we knew, we kind of were like bobbing our head and singing along to the song.
You wouldn't know, but yeah, we like rap. We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just recently. We've done things like scavenger hunts. Just going out to dinner and a movie all the time, like Monty said earlier, the repetitiveness, like sometimes you just need to break away from that. And hey, we're not saying that you need to come up with these on your own. I mean, we've tapped into some good books, podcasts, so hopefully we can, again, put some tools in your toolbox. But yeah, there are lots of ideas that can be fun and inexpensive. So we understand that you all are busy right now, especially if you have kids in sports, in clubs, marching band, whatever is going on in your life right now. It gets busy and it gets expensive. So even more challenging, maybe, I guess, to do dates, but it is doable. You can do things. Do you remember when we did the picnic date?
Yes.
Here, at home.
During COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, that one that was like, we didn't really have any other choice, but it was fun. Yeah. It was something different, which we don't need to have COVID to do a picnic at home. So things like that, think outside the box, think of things that won't break the bank and that will still communicate, I love you, I need this time, I want to spend time with you, and you are valuable.
I care about you, and I want to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
So the focus of these fun dates is to have fun together. So have fun, laugh. When was the last time you, as a married couple, just laughed together?
Yeah.
And just had fun. You laughed so hard to where your cheeks hurt, you know? So just go out, have fun. Second type of date, which I think is pretty cool, it's the romantic date. So this date, romantic date, creates a space for you and your spouse to have a sacred intimacy and to connect and really to be present with each other. During the romantic date, you want to ignite what we call the eros love. And that's that romantic love that God puts inside of us. And everybody has this eros love. And so this romantic date is when a couple really is present with each other and the focus is on one another. And it might take maybe dressing up a little bit. It might be putting on that special cologne, guys, or that special perfume, or the lady's doing your hair the way that your husband likes her hair. I mean, all those things. And just really focusing on each other and striving to build a romantic atmosphere and an environment. It might be a candlelight dinner. I was thinking of our Valentine's Day weekend just this last year.
Yes,
we took a trip out to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and we had a beautiful night. Had a nice dinner, and then we went to a Broadway show. We watched Hamilton, and it was just a beautiful romantic night that I just loved hanging out with you and just admiring your beauty.
Oh, thanks. Well, again, you might be saying, well, that sounds very expensive. We're not telling you need to go fly somewhere and do something like that. This was something that was actually a blessing that fell into our lap. So a romantic date can be dressing up, going out, and it doesn't have to be an expensive dinner, but just taking the time. It comes back to taking the time. And I think that keeps coming back around because that's something that is sucked out of our everyday life of doing everything else. And sometimes we prioritize our marriage way back here because everything else is taking precedent of our life. So when we carve out the time to think of creative ways to do these things and be romantic, be that romantic that your wife fell in love with, be that romantic that your husband fell in love with, and it will pay off.
Yeah, you don't lose the romance just because you got the girl or you got the guy and you got the ring. You got to keep that spark alive in your marriage. And so carving out a time to have romantic dates is important. So we have fun dates, we got romantic dates, and the third one we have
Integrity Fence is your hometown team for fencing. I'm former Bronco Mark Jackson, and I know you'll score every time with Integrity Fencing. Call today to hear about their new automatic security gates for your business or visit integrityfence.com.
Communication dates.
So communication dates, you may or may have not heard of these, but when we have sessions with some couples and as their marriage coaches, we have presented communication dates to them, especially when they're struggling in communication. If they are coming to us and they say, my wife doesn't talk to me, my husband doesn't open up, we present them with the idea of communication dates. And it's important to know that, first of all, let's back up. On any dates, you really need to focus on you and your husband. It's just you and your husband, not bringing the kids or the in-laws or sometimes another couple. It depends on if you guys are double dating or something like that. But what we're talking about today is you and your spouse. Yeah. So on a communication date, it needs to be just you and your spouse. Yeah. That is the important part because you want to be able to look across the table or wherever you're at and just say the things that you really want to say to them. And we're not talking about this is a time to argue and bring all these things to the table that you're doing wrong. No, a communication date is purposeful in communicating about things like, what do I do that makes you feel secure?
Yes.
Women love to feel secure. So if you open that door and ask that question,
Yep.
well, you can learn a lot of things about your wife, but you have to open that door. So basically, the communication date is about opening doors, doors to let your spouse back into a heart that might have been closed.
Yeah.
Opening a door to a heart that has been closed because of hurt or pain, whatever that might look like. But it's a safe place to talk about important things. Something else you can ask is, what made you fall in love with me?
Yeah. That's a
Like
good one.
going back to the basics, going back to the dating days prior to marriage, prior to
Yeah.
kids, or when it was just you and your spouse. So communication dates.
I think another good question that can be asked during a communication date, if it revolves around the 5 love languages, and just
yeah.
asking your spouse, what's your love language? And then you sharing with your spouse what your love language is, and talk about how you guys can utilize those love languages to foster oneness, to foster love within your marriage. So, my love language is different from Jeannine's.
Yeah.
And so we've had that conversation. So talk about at your communication date, what are your love languages? I think that's really important.
Very important, because love languages change over time. So if you haven't had the love language talk in a very long time, you might want to sit down and have a communication date and ask your spouse, has your love language changed? Because I know mine has. I mean, since I started my career and I've been really busy with just being out of the home, because I was stay-at-home mom, and we had a household where I was raising our kids for many, many years. So my love language back then is not the same as now, because mine is like acts of service. Because when I come home and I'm tired, or I have all these things I got to get done, and laundry is done, yes. I mean, that is just speaking my love language. Or if he makes dinner before I get home, because I'm home later than he is. I mean, those are important things to learn about your spouse as time goes on. In marriage, things change. There's change.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think another question that maybe a couple can talk about during the communication day is, what's our goal as a married couple for the next 3 months, 6 months?
Goals are good.
You talk about goals. And then maybe another question they can, you guys can ask one another is, how have our differences made us better as a couple?
That makes you actually really get into some deep thought.
Yes.
And working on not being negative.
Yeah.
Because on communication dates, we express to couples, do your best to not bring negativity to the table at all.
Yeah.
A communication date, when it's over, it should be one that has enhanced your relationship that evening or that day.
That's the ultimate goal of a communication date.
Right.
Yeah. Sounds good. So we talked about fun dates, romantic dates, communication dates, and I'm sure you all might have some other ideas of other dates you have done. So we're asking that you would share some ideas and thoughts with us. And one big thing I wanted to ask, and this is something that you, the listeners, might be asking yourself, is this: should every date night end with some type of sexual expression? What would you say?
No,
Okay.
Absolutely not. No. For 2 reasons that I can think of right off the top of my head is you will put
Like pressure?
No, not pressure, but like if that's the case for a wife, every time you plan a date, I'm going to have this like guarded, like, yes, no, just because not always do I want to just end the date in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to be loved sometimes, but I mean, if it gets to a point where you're set up and it falls in that way, I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah. So I would say...
Well, I didn't say my second thing.
Okay.
Well, because you have to leave just the opportunity for what's the word I'm looking for? Just surprise. The element of surprise.
Element of surprise,
That's
okay.
what I'm thinking of. Because if you always have in your mind that that's going to be the end game, then there's no element of surprise.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't you like to be surprised?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I would say the answer to that question, does every date night have to end in some form of sexual expression? I would say yes, no, maybe. But I'm basically saying the same thing you're saying.
Yeah.
So the idea is, don't put the pressure on a date night to have sex at the end of the date night. Take that pressure off the table. Just enjoy each other, and if it turns out to be that way and there is a great sexual expression between you and your spouse, then yay God, it's a good thing. And so
I think that's funny.
yeah.
You think it's funny? We just got kind of uncomfortable with talking about sex, and we're doing a marriage podcast. It's a good question.
Yeah.
That was a good question.
Yeah, it is good.
So
Very good.
yes, no, maybe.
Yes, no, maybe. Yeah. So our goal in this podcast is to, again, put tools in your
Yes.
marriage toolbox, your date night toolbox. There's a lot of dating resources out there. There's books, there's kits you can buy. I mean, guys, just get creative, okay? We really want every couple to get into the healthy habit of dating.
And remember, you're not doing it just for you and your spouse, but there is a generation watching you.
Yes.
There is your lineage that you would want to pass things down about showing how to love on your spouse. Always remember that.
Yeah, please do. Hey, before we let you go today, we want to ask you to do a couple of things. Number one, if you like the podcast, you like listening, and you enjoy the content that we're sharing on the Favorite Marriage Podcast, like, subscribe, share with your family members, friends, neighbors. We just ask that you would help us get the word out as we have launched this brand new marriage podcast. Number two is if you have any ideas that you would like for us to tackle or discuss on the Favorite Marriage Podcast, you can email us at Monty and Jeannine at thefavouritemarriage.com. And all this information will be in the show notes here on the podcast platform. So make sure you do that for us. We sure do appreciate that. And thanks for hanging with us.
Yeah, I have one more thing to say.
Yeah, say it.
Because Monty, I think we forgot the dating challenge. Did we forget the
We
dating
did.
challenge?
That's the biggest part. Why don't you share the dating
Okay,
challenge?
yeah, so not leaving quite yet, because we can't leave without challenging you with the date night challenge.
Yes.
So guys, we are putting on the table a challenge. We are asking that in the next 30 days, you take one of the three or all three of these ideas and commit to your spouse and do something. Tell us what you did. Leave out all the details.
Yeah.
Just maybe where you went and when you went, or whatever you want to share. And if you guys are overachievers, do it in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And you can share that. You can even share picture ideas. If you want to take a selfie, you can share it on our Facebook page at The Favorite Marriage. You can share it on our YouTube channel at The Favorite Marriage. We love to hear your responses.
Yeah.
And maybe even some pictures that you took of some beautiful nights you had together.
Yes. And here's why we want you to share, because we know of a lot of families who don't have a whole lot of support here especially here in the Fountain Valley area. We're military known, this area. And so there's families out there who need ideas, actually, fun fact is with some of our families that are here, like deployed or they're stationed here, they've tapped in with other military families and have asked, like, hey, I'll watch your kids while you watch mine. And that's why we want you to share, because there's so much need out there. People want to date.
Yes.
And they're just not able to. So if you start sharing and you start just becoming acquainted with others, even through our podcast, that would be amazing. We would love to see a connection that way in a community of supporters of marriage. So so share.
Yeah.
We are so open to that, because we have families who just need those ideas and need support.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sounds good.
I think that's it.
Well, hey, we want to say thank you for joining us, for tuning in to today's podcast.
Yes.
And we appreciate you. Man, we'll see you next time.
Go date.
Go date, yeah. And remember, we pray God's favor
On your forever.
on your forever. Thanks for listening to The Favorite Marriage, where you and your spouse can experience God's favor on your forever. If you enjoy this resource, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time on the Favorite Marriage Podcast.